following is a GNC podcast production. Welcome to Geek Addicts, a pop culture podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geek Addicts, the spin-off of the Gaming Collecting Podcast. We're on episode 3 now. I'm the main host, Bill, and this is Matt. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Another week. Had the day off, which was all right. It's nice to get a day off every now and then. It's surprisingly, Veterans Day is a weird one where like a lot of the world doesn't get it off, but some people do.
I did not. I did go into work today, but apparently for some reason it was so slow today that like half the people didn't show up anyway because of the holiday. And then like, I don't know. I guess it was so slow that they told us that not to come in tomorrow for overtime. But like, I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah. I don't even remember. Did we get that day off at Richards or?
I don't remember. I do think that there we got more days off than I get at my current job, but I don't remember if this is one of them because I know that for some cases they would give us a day off for like an extra day off for like Thanksgiving or New Year's or something, and we would get rid of one of the other ones that we would have gotten otherwise. So I don't know.
Yeah,
a lot of these companies are weird about that.
Yeah, some they just give off random days, probably because they have to fill a quota or something. But yeah, it was interesting. Me and Alex actually went out just to get out of the house for a while and went to Target. And my God, it's like you forget that like schools get this day off, so like you're just like all the parents that had to take the day off to watch their kids. It's like, damn, like crazy shit out there.
No kidding. Oh, I forgot to ask, how was the Comic-Con?
Oh, Rhode Island Comic-Con? It was okay. Very crowded, like to the point where it got to. So I got in like an hour early because I had the VIP membership package, I guess. Mm-hmm. I ordered the tickets hastily, so I didn't even realize that's what I bought. But the first hour was nice because I was there was like a handful of people in there, and you could just walk around the event floor and just see a whole bunch of stuff. Mm-hmm. Nothing too crazy. Like they didn't really have a whole lot of there was like 2 game booths, but they really wasn't anything. The only stuff worth picking up was absurdly expensive, and I was kind of like, not there. Mm-hmm. I bought a lot of art. You can see, this isn't a video podcast yet, but I have it in my background now.
Oh, so, yeah. I think you posted some of it on the Discord too, didn't you?
Yeah. Basically, I have this green wall behind me, and there was nothing there before, so now I have some artwork I put up, which is nice. So if we ever do make this a video podcast, it won't be just a blank space.
Yeah, that's probably what I'm gonna have. I don't have a whole lot of room to work with.
Yeah.
It's pretty full house.
Just a green screen, just edit in space.
I'm pretty sure I've been to that Comic-Con before. It was in Providence, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I went to that one a few years ago. It was like multi-leveled, wasn't it? Like there was like a basement floor, then the regular floor, and then another floor above that.
So they cut it back this year. It was only 2 floors. There was the main vendor floor, and then there was a separate floor with like a whole bunch of like basically the talent that showed up that you can meet. Mm-hmm. That quickly became completely impossible to get to because there was so many people. Like you literally would have to force your way through the crowd, and I was like, I don't want to get in there that badly, so I just kind of hung out down in the vendor floor because it was at least like not claustrophobic.
I think the one that we went to, because I went with my wife at the time and our niece, and I think William Shatner was at that one. We wanted to go and see him, but it was like fucking $300 or something crazy.
Yeah,
like that.
He was at Boston Comic-Con one year, and I remember it was like $400 to see him, and I was just like, fuck that. I don't need to see Shatner that badly.
Yeah, what does he need $400 per person for? Dude's in his 90s. Like,
yeah, they were so crazy about it though. Like when he walked into the show floor, there was like this little area in like the vendor floor where you could kind of see. They actually brought like this like sheet thing just to block people from seeing him. I was like, what up? I was like, alrighty, like whatever.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love TOS, but he's such a prima donna.
Yeah. I mean, he's not even the only one. The worst to me was like the cosplayers that were charging for photos. I was like, yeah, but
yeah,
they got to make money, so I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
But
Other than that, though,
Hmm?
I was just gonna say, other than that, though, it was okay.
That's cool. I think that was actually the Comic-Con I went to where they I had the opportunity to buy the Harmony Gold dub of Dragon Ball, and I passed it up for some reason. I don't know why I did it, but
yeah, I remember I was there last year and they had like this entire booth of like anime bootlegs, and I was like, this is funny, but I bet this is illegal technically.
oh yeah, there's always, I mean, every con I've gone to has had like that big wall of like. There's always that one vendor that just had a shit ton of bootlegs.
Yeah, not as it wasn't as funny though as the when we went to Kineticon earlier this year. There was an entire booth that was selling nothing but hentai, and I was like, lovely, because Alex was looking at something on the other side, and I was like, oh, Blu-rays. I'll just kind of browse these for a minute. And I look at the booth for 1 minute. And I'm like, that's porn. I'm like, I'm out.
But these people realize you can find that on the internet.
Some people like. Well, what was funny was there was a whole bunch of manga like on the other side, and like it was all like hentai doujin. And I was like, that's nice. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna look over there. I'm like, oh, Blu-rays, those are nice. I'm like, oh, these are the same booth. Like, also porn.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. The vendor was very nice and friendly. I just wasn't interested in
be.
buying anything.
Yeah, just don't shake hands.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyways, moving on to our topic for this episode. Do you want to lead the way on this one, Matt?
Sure. This is going to be the start of what I'd like to be a running series of episodes where we take a look at live action adaptations, mainly of anime, but I'm sure we'll mix in some video games, and I'd like to toss in a couple book adaptations as well every now and then, but we'll try to stick mostly to the anime and the video game ones. And we wanted to kick it off with one that's pretty much considered to be one of the good ones. And the only ones I'm aware of really are the Death Note ones from not Netflix, the Japanese ones, which you can't find in streaming. You have to have a physical copy. And One Piece, which Alex would probably kill you if you did without her. Yes. So I pretty much left the only other one that I was totally sure of, and that is the Rurouni Kenshin live action.
Yeah, I mean, I was like thinking down the list of like all my the live actions I've seen, and most of them are pretty bad. The only one I know of that like would potentially be worth watching is like the Ace Attorney live action. Mm-hmm. But that's also, you can't find it anywhere, so you'd have to find a physical, or you'd have to sail the 7 seas to find. So
yeah, no kidding. But so we were kind of talking about this before, but you have not seen the anime or read the manga or had any real experience outside of this movie that we watched.
So I've only been into manga for about 2 years now. So unfortunately, Rurouni Kenshin, the manga, is not the easiest manga to find because I believe it's currently out of print.
Kind of understandable with the circumstance.
For reasons that we're not really going to get into. If you know, you know. But,
yeah.
So finding that is not exactly the most affordable thing to do right now, especially for an out of print manga. Mm-hmm. And when I was into anime, I've always been kind of like, I've only been super into it for like the past 4 years. So this one wasn't really high on my priority list at the time, and I didn't really know much about it. So I kind of just didn't really pay attention to it. And I've only really known about it recently because of controversies. So I've had a very odd kind of introduction to this series.
Mm-hmm. I had seen the anime. I watched it for the first time, maybe, I don't even know what this, but it might have been like 8 years ago or something. But that was only because at one point, me and a bunch of my buddies had gotten together and we had like a big like connector tower, whatever. We all plugged our hard drives into it. We're exchanging shows that we had downloaded for various means. But at one point, I had ended up with Rurouni Kenshin and Inuyasha. And me and my friend Matt, who you've met a couple times, we kind of like made up a deal like, all right, you're gonna watch Inuyasha, I'll watch Rurouni Kenshin, and then we'll exchange notes and we'll go around and watch the opposites. So I had watched Kenshin for that whole thing, and I enjoyed it for what it was. It kind of fell off after the Shishio arc. Reasonably,
isn't it like a Full Metal Alchemist thing where it kind of like it follows the manga for a while and then it kind of goes off on its own weird tangent?
Kind of, it follows the manga up through what the Kyoto arc, the Shishio arc, whatever you want to call it, which would be represented in the live action movies 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if it was because the manga hadn't gotten far enough yet or whatever the reason was, but they ended up just making a bunch of filler for like the last 30 episodes of the show. And I think by that point, interest had fallen. So they just never adapted the last arc.
Okay. So the original manga doesn't complete the story then. I mean, the original anime doesn't complete the story then, I'm guessing.
Right. I'm guessing that this new reanimation like reboot or whatever starting from the beginning is probably going to try and rectify that, but
so it'll be like a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood or a Fruit Baskets 2019 basically.
I'm hoping. I mean, it would be nice if they just stuck to the manga material and left all the other stuff out and actually finished it.
Yeah, because I've heard fans of the manga really enjoy it, so
I have a basic understanding of the last arc, but I haven't read it or seen the live action version of it, which is actually fairly new. It came out, I don't know, a year or two ago.
I believe so. I know. So there's 4. So we're obviously talking about the live action Kenshin film, but there's 4 of them, right?
I believe there's 5. There's the one that we watched, the first one, and then the Shishio arc is told over 2 movies, and then from my understanding, the 4th movie is backstory for Kenshin, which was told in OVAs back in the day.
Yes.
And then the 5th movie is like the actual telling of the final arc.
Gotcha.
Which actually they did reference in the movie, the first one.
Okay.
When he talks in the movie about how he got his scars.
Yes.
That's a big part of his backstory. That's kind of what that whole OVA was about, is how he got those.
I finally get now where, speaking of our previous episode, I finally get where Zach got his 2 cross scar thing now in Final Fantasy VII.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that scar is really dumb looking. And then I'm like, oh, it's a reference to Rurouni Kenshin, I bet. Because
probably
who else has a cross scar at
this
point?
I'm not 100% sure when the Kenshin manga originally came out, but it definitely predated Final Fantasy VII. I'm pretty sure.
So it definitely predates the Zach's appearance, because you couldn't really tell with the polygon model in original 7 any real detail on the face. The face scar thing really didn't become apparent until Advent Children, I want to say, because he makes like that 5-second cameo in that film.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. Like realizing in hindsight, I was like, hey, wait a minute.
So I'm interested to hear your first impression of the movie, having no foreknowledge about the story.
So I guess before I get into the actual film itself, I will say, so I watched this on Netflix, dubbed, because I didn't realize they had a dub. I thought I was going to be jumping into a subtitle thing. I will say this is the first live action dubbed production I've watched in a very long time, and while I think the performances are very good, you can clearly tell those voices aren't coming from those people.
Oh yeah, I mean, what was his name? The like Kingpin guy, Takeda. He was voiced by J. Michael Tatum, which was the voice and the dude did not match up at all, in my opinion.
Well, I immediately started this and I heard Kenshin talk, and I'm like, oh, it's Mika Solisode. I think that's how you say his name. I apologize in advance. He's got an odd name. And I was like, hey, it's the guy from Black Clover. I know that voice because I just watched that series. And then I'm terrible with names. What's the main female's name? The heroine.
Karu.
Yeah, when Karu comes on, immediately I heard her voice. I'm like, hey, it's Kaguya.
Oh, that's what it was. I was having trouble playing. I knew I recognized the voice, but I couldn't place it.
Yeah, Alexis tipped in. I was like, hey, I know that voice. I've just heard it many times.
And I believe Sanosuke was played by Eric Vale.
Yes, yeah, I noticed that one right away because I was like, oh, Future Trunks is here. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, going into your opening thoughts about like the production itself, like what were your thoughts about like the way it looked?
The production itself was very good. This didn't feel cheap at all watching it. Because sometimes the anime films have that very cheesy, like you look at this like Dragon Ball Evolution and you're just like, it's like you're like, this had a budget because it doesn't look like it. This one though, watching it though, I was kind of like, granted, having no reference to the source material, I didn't really know what to expect, but there was never a point where I was like, this looks cheap or this doesn't look particularly good. I was kind of like, this is pretty solid looking overall. I was a little confused by the opening scene because I didn't know what was going on there. I get now it was kind of it was supposed to imply Kenshin's whole stepping away from the fighting kind of mentality there. But for the most part, like it pretty much hooked me in right from the start. Like, because I didn't even notice the 2 hours went by.
Really? That's good to hear. It's definitely one of the better ones for sure. You'd actually be surprised at I just off the top of my head, I want to say the budget for that movie was about $3 million, which is pretty low, all things considered, and it looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing how like a big production, like didn't Dragon Ball Evolution have some stupid like amount of money behind it or something? I'd have to look.
I'm getting my numbers mixed up. It was either 15 million or 50 million.
It was probably higher than it should have had.
You know what? It might have been 30 million. I know it was somewhere in that range, but it was definitely a lot more than this movie got, and this movie looked way, way better.
Oh yeah, like you can tell they wasted so much money on Dragon Ball Evolution. With this movie, I was like watching it, I'm like, those outfits, everything looks pretty good. Like nothing looks out of place at all. The effects were nice. Like there was no like obvious CGI that looked really bad. It was all mostly practical from what I could tell. Some of the fight choreography, I could tell they were messing around with camera and like effects, but nothing that was like you'd watch and be like, that's not good.
Yeah, a lot of the choreography I was a big fan of. I thought they did a really good job with a lot of those sword fights, especially the big one at the end when they were storming the fortress or whatever.
Even the final fight, I'm not going to spoil it until we get to the end, but the final like real fight at the end with Kenshin and the villain, I can't remember his name right now.
Let me look at my notes real quick. I had to take notes because I'm bad at remembering names.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, especially unless it's one I know. I can't remember her name.
Jime Udo.
Yes,
was the fake manslayer or kill sword as they referred to it in the movie.
So I was a little confused. Is he the guy in the opening scene who grabs Kenshin's discarded sword?
Yeah, I got mixed up on that too. But when you're watching that scene, you see his eyes kind of go black when he picks up the sword, and that's kind of like your tip off, like, oh, this is that guy.
Okay, so that was him. Okay.
So in theory, they didn't ever say it flat out, but in theory, he was using Kenshin's sword that whole time from the revolution. I should probably give a little bit of backstory. So basically, I'm not going to give too much away because I'm sure a lot of this stuff will come up in the later movies, which I'm sure we'll end up covering at some point. So Kenshin was an orphan, and he was taken in by this dude who trained him in the school of swordsmanship that he uses. But eventually, the whole big revolution started, and he left his teacher to go join up because he wanted to make a difference and, help create a better Japan, essentially. So he, for I think about 5 years, was an assassin for the revolutionists, or I think they call them restorationists.
Yeah, something like that.
But by the end of the 5 years and the whole story that he goes through about his scars, which I believe are told in the fourth movie, he decides he's done with killing. He doesn't want to be a part of that anymore. He's both physically and mentally scarred from it. And he has a reverse blade sword forged so that he can protect people, and he becomes a Rurouni, which is a wandering samurai.
I like the idea behind the reverse blade sword in a way, because they bring it up in a later encounter he has, but like the sword obviously can't hurt like the people he's fighting against, but if he slips up, the sword can hurt him.
Yeah,
which is an interesting like idea, because I was kind of like, when I first was like, I'm like, why do you even bother putting a blade on it? I was like, oh, it makes sense here because it's so he doesn't trip up ever.
yeah, and well, I mean, you could see that's the thing is like whenever people say like, oh, it's a sword that you can't cut or you can't kill with, I'm like, hey, you hit somebody over the head hard enough with that thing and they're gonna die. Like,
I mean, blunt force trauma is still a thing. It's more so he doesn't like it's basically more so he can control what he's doing more.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even then he could just turn the sword around and still,
which he has done a couple times in the anime, but he never actually kills. At least to my knowledge, I don't know how the last arc goes. Once again, I never read it, but that's the basic setup. Is he's just wandering around, and then he ends up in Tokyo, and then the events of the anime / movie take place.
So the movie said this takes place in like the 1800s, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The outfits that some of the characters were wearing were a little. I saw and I was kind of like, is this 1800s? But I guess I don't know enough about 1800s Japan, so it's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not like super knowledgeable about Japanese history, but from what I understand, they were kind of like old school for a very long time, and then they evolved like technologically wicked fast.
Yeah,
like over the course of like 50 years, they became like modern to the point of being above everyone else.
Well, they kind of alluded to it with the because they mentioned like they wanted to like copy the Western world, which you can tell from some of the how like the soldiers all have their specific uniforms that are very more Western style compared to like the traditional Japanese outfits you see from most of the non soldiers.
Yeah. So yeah, the story starts and Kenshin. Well, actually, no. It shows the whole fight of him, like the final battle of the Restoration, and he gives up the sword. You see, you meet a couple of people. You meet Jine Udo, who is pretty much the main antagonist for the movie, and you also meet Saito, who actually in the anime doesn't show up until later. You actually don't see him until right before the Shishio arc starts. So that was one of the changes they made. But most of the changes that they made in the movie were very minor. There's only a few specific things that I took note of here. Very, very little changes for each individual character. They were pretty much as they are. I will say Saito definitely seemed a bit more honorable in a way than he did in the series. He definitely was a little bit more of a loose cannon in the series.
So I have to ask, is the movie more accurate to the manga or the anime?
I haven't read the manga yet. I have the first couple of these bigs. I've just been kind of getting them as they become available.
Gotcha.
But I mean, to my knowledge, the anime was pretty accurate, at least up to the point where they kind of spun off instead of doing filler.
Gotcha.
But overall, I'd say it was pretty accurate. Hold on one sec. Yep. But yeah, some of the main changes with the characters, they cut out a lot of people's backstories. There's a whole set of backstories for Yahiko and Sanosuke, and they cut one character out of this arc entirely. But I believe he shows up in the next movie.
I assume that's probably more for just to make it work as a movie, because you can only do so much in a 2-hour span.
Yeah, I mean they did a really good job for the 2 hour, like 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Like, yeah, I was never lost. So
yeah, they stuffed a lot into that story, and for the most part, except for shuffling a few things around, it stayed pretty much on the course the whole time.
Yeah, you know a movie's well structured when you don't have to pause it and then look up an explanation for something, because I've watched some films where I'll be like getting through it and I'll get to a point and then I'll have to pause the film and literally go to Google and be like, explain this what's going on here, because I have no freaking idea.
Yeah.
This movie pretty much from beginning to end, I got what was going on. It doesn't go like super in depth anywhere, which I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that this movie does really well, I think I mentioned it already, but and this is kind of like the main thing that I care about when it comes to any adaptation, especially live action.
Mhm.
The most important thing, you can change the story up as much as you want. You can twist things up. You can create a whole new story completely unrelated, but the characters need to be true to the characters, you know?
Yes.
And that's one thing that many of these other ones have gotten wrong. And we'll go into more detail as we hit some of those. But things like Dragon Ball Evolution, things like the Netflix Death Note movie, things like the live action Attack on Titan, the characters are so radically different than the way they are in the original that it muddles the whole thing. And no matter how good the story is, you're not going to be able to get your focus away from that.
Yeah, like there's that's inherently the big problem with live action adaptions is it's like sometimes the source material is just too hard to adapt, and we run into a lot of issues. Thankfully, though, this mostly seems to be a traditional storyline. Like there's no extremely out. I mean, there's a little bit of magic that happens at one point during the film, but other than that, like everything is pretty believable, which I think makes it a lot easier to adapt into a film.
Yeah, and even that one instance that I believe I know what you're referring to, even that is kind of like somewhat based in biology. Like in the series itself, they explain it in a way that it's not magic. It's more of like it's basically glorified intimidation.
Yeah, I kind of got the reference for that because there's a scene where uh, they try to do this on Kenshin and he doesn't even react at all because he's that in control, I guess.
Yeah, it's essentially a battle of wills kind of thing.
Hmm.
So yeah, Kenshin shows up and I think he's almost immediately confronted by Kaoru, who is accusing him of being the kill sword. Which he says like, no, that's not me. He shows her the sword, and she apologizes. Whatever.
I love that scene. He was just trying to eat his damn whatever that was on the stick, and then she fucking just like starts attacking him, knocks him on the ground, and then there goes the food.
So what happened after that? I gotta look at my notes here. So yeah, they go through that whole thing, and then we jump over to Takeda's place, the main like kingpin villain. And they go through this whole thing where you meet Megumi, who is part of a team making a special opium for him. And let's see. Yeah, so they get Udo, who is like the fake kill sword, and he kills a bunch of people, one of which being an undercover cop.
Yes.
And during that whole thing, where the guy like tries to get away, chases him down, kills him, and then Kaoru bumps into him. And she confronts him because the dude's been going around saying that he's using the sword style that her father had founded. And that kind of sparked the first real confrontation between Kenshin and this group of villains.
Yeah, like I remember that scene was pretty effective because like you get the scene of the guy walking across the bridge and then falls off the bridge dead, and then he shows up and it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, and we got like the first real like instance of Kenshin's fighting style with he basically uses his hands more than he actually uses his blade, which is an interesting style.
Yeah, and I like how he uses his sheath as well, like while he's fighting to kind of like, you know, kind of use more blunt force rather than slicing, you know.
Yeah, I like too the scene where he moves Kairu out of the way, and then he's immediately just like completely not even acknowledging the fight while talking to her, which I was kind of like, okay, like he's kind of a goofball. This is fun.
Yeah. Oh, and the other thing that I noticed throughout watching this movie is how like occasionally he'll just go ororo. Like, did you notice that? How every now and then he'd be like ororo. Like, what the fuck? What are you taking?
Yeah. I don't know.
But it's just one of those silly little things that they do in these movies. So, and this is one of the first times we really see any sort of I I assume it was CG. I don't think this guy actually like wall ran and jumped down that whole thing.
Yeah, I assume it was either CG or like some really good practical effects, but
And that's one of the things that this movie really benefits from is because of the source material. There's not a whole lot of supernatural aspects to it, so they don't really have to do a whole lot with like CGI fight scenes or anything like that.
yeah, like so I was comparing this because of the style and the era. I was comparing a lot of this to Inuyasha when I was watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why I always feel like an Inuyasha live action would suck is just because there's so much supernatural and like demon stuff going on in Inuyasha that I just don't think would transfer over well to a live action.
Well, I mean, I guess it would depend on who's making it. I mean, we got that live action Yu Yu Hakusho that's coming out next month,
True.
so who knows how that's going to go. I'm hoping it's good. I'd love for it to be good because Yu Yu Hakusho is one of my all times. But
yeah, no, but going to the Kenshin though, like just the way it's styled, like I feel like really benefited this medium from the get go.
mm-hmm.
And I will say, like, one thing so I looked up the character, like, art designs of, like, every character after I finished watching it, just because I was curious to how well they actually, like, casted all the actors. And I have to say, they were pretty spot on in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, obviously, you're not going to be able to perfectly one-to-one match an anime character to a human.
Right.
They're designed to be unrealistic, but for what they were, I thought everyone looked pretty much spot on to their characters for the most part.
The only one that I'd say wasn't the absolute perfect fit probably was Sanosuke.
Yeah, he was a bit more goofy looking, I guess, not as stylized as he is in the anime.
And I don't know if it was just like the shape of his face or something, but he seemed like he was shorter than he's supposed to be because he's supposed to be like the tallest dude there.
Yeah. I think that's more just limitations of the medium than anything.
Yeah, but overall, I think they did a great job with him. I would have liked it if they touched on his backstory a little bit.
Yeah,
because his backstory, I don't know if they're gonna do anything in the later movies, but he had the whole thing where he was part of like a sect of the revolution when he was a kid. It was him and like another kid that was with him, and they were in like this sect with a bunch of adults. I think they were like mercenaries or something. And they were working for the revolutionists. And once they did everything they were supposed to do, they turned around and stabbed them in the back and like pretty much used them as scapegoats and killed everyone. And Sanosuke was like the only survivor from that. And that kind of like fueled a very strong dislike for the current government that is set up.
Yeah. Now there was some so the thing with this movie I noticed too is like it was very much carried by its the fight scenes in a lot of ways, because basically the way the film was broken up is you'd have some story stuff, fight scene, story stuff, fight scene, story stuff, fight scene as it went on.
Yeah.
Even fight scenes in the story stuff were pretty good. I mean, that's kind of pretty typical of this style of manga anyways, so
yeah. Well, I think that was kind of inevitable because they took so many different because a lot of the stuff that happened throughout the movie, they kind of took a lot of things that would have been like one episode or like a two-parter, and they kind of just stuffed them all together and into that one arc and made it all part of that arc.
Yeah.
With like the opium and the guy running the drug business and all that stuff. Like for instance, the Udo, the guy who was pretending to be Kenshin essentially. That actually was the whole thing of like the guy pretending to be Kenshin and using Kaoru's school as a way to like, defame them, I guess. That was actually the first episode, and it was a completely different guy. And the guy with the big straw hat thing, he came in later, and that was like a 2 or 3 part episode that was completely separate from everything else that's happening.
Yeah, I will say the scene with all the guys coming in to take over the school, that was probably one of the more entertaining fights, as it really showed off Kenshin's style in a lot of ways.
Yeah, the whole style of fighting off a group of enemies and stuff. I did
I
like
like.
that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I like that he basically owned everybody without like basically any effort at all.
Yeah, I I do like that Sanosuke kept his big sword throughout the whole movie.
I love the big sword because he literally just like flails it around like randomly during the movie.
And
Like
he
you
blatantly
rare
says that it's so beat up and beat to shit that like it's no good for cutting. He just smashes people with it.
pretty. That's kind of that style, honestly. Like going back to ironically, I have another Final Fantasy reference though. It's basically kind of like the Buster Sword,
Mm.
especially with how Zack used it, where he didn't even use the blade; he used the blunt side of it because symbolism, I guess. But
I
it's
guess so.
basically it's just basically a club at that point.
Pretty much, but it works for him. Because in the series, when he has that initial fight with Kenshin when they meet, I, if I'm remembering right, I think Kenshin breaks the sword. I think he like cuts it in half or something, and then he never uses it again. He just brawls from that point on.
Yeah, because in the movie, like Kenshin steps on it at one point, you get that really epic like backflip scene,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty good. I did laugh at the scene where he catapults across the river because like he knocks that one guy off the boat, and I was just like, I guess fuck that guy in particular.
Yeah, right.
Um, that scene was pretty good. Honestly, all the fight scenes were very. The fight scenes are the highlight of this movie. Honestly,
Yeah, they're very well choreographed. I'm really interested to see some of the later ones and see how they handle a lot of those fight scenes because they don't really, like I say, this show and series, franchise, whatever, it doesn't really lean into supernatural stuff. It doesn't really lean into powers or anything like that. The only things that resemble powers in this series are things that you could explain with some exaggerations, obviously, because it's anime. But for the most part, there are things that are rooted in reality to a degree.
yeah,
So I don't know. I think that adds a lot to the combat scenes, in my opinion, because it makes it a lot more realistic.
I will say one scene in particular that was really effective was the brief flashback into Kenshin's past, where you see him kill that basically group of samurais who were talking. I guess it was like they were getting ready for a bachelor party or something.
Pretty much, yeah.
And he basically brutalizes them, and then you get the one that won't back down, and like because he's getting married, and Kenshin just fucking he every time he gets up, he just keeps knocking him back down until he finally just puts him out of his misery.
That
But
is actually that's a super important scene.
that's what I
Um,
assumed because it that's how he got one of his scars, anyways.
mhm. That's actually the OVA that tells his backstory. The anime OVA. That's how that opens up. Is that scene?
Mm. Nah, because but then they show the scene of the fiance crying over the body, and you see him in the background. It's kind of like that's deep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then it's not a spoiler to say, but he does say that he gets the other part of his ex scar from the woman that he was supposed to marry. So
Yeah,
I'll leave that alone until we get to that movie, or if you end up watching the show until you get to that part. And actually, no, it's not in the show. Duh, they didn't adapt that part.
yeah.
But yeah, we'll save that for later. I am interested to see how well they tell that part of the story. But
Mm.
based on the way that they did this particular movie, I have high hopes. Um, I will say one thing that because I have very minor problems with this movie.
Mhm.
They're really more nitpicks than anything because I can wave them all away and just say it's a movie. They only have so much time, you know. Um,
Yeah,
but one of the things that kind of bothered me was they really didn't give Kenshin and Sanosuke a chance to really form a friendship.
yeah. There's he just kind of shows up and he's like, "Hey, we're buds now. Let's go fight."
Yeah, it's like they were fighting, and then they were like, "Nah, you're cool. We don't want to fight anymore. Fuck that other guy." And then they were just friends, you know. And they didn't really expand on.
Yeah, he just shows up when the other girl character gets I can't remember her name right now. Gets
Megumi.
yeah, when she gets kidnapped, he just kind of shows up and he's like, "Yo, let's go save her." It's like we're buds now.
Yeah, but that was actually in the anime. The reason Sanosuke gets involved is because a buddy of his gets hooked on that opium and dies from it, and that's
Uh,
like a whole like leading point. leading point into that whole thing. That's actually one change that they made that I really liked is where Megumi goes back there and she went there to go kill the guy. In the anime, and I'm assuming the manga, she actually just goes to kill herself, which
lovely,
which doesn't really solve anything. But like, you know, I like that they kind of gave her that more they gave her a little bit more urgency in that way. Like she is trying to make up for what she did by taking out the real problem and not just killing herself.
I will say my one thing about this scene though that this is more just me like laughing at costuming choices, but the guy with the mask, can't remember his name.
That's actually one of the bigger changes. In the anime, the guy with the mask, his name was Hanya.
Okay.
But they actually swapped him out for a character that doesn't show up until a good bit later in the series for some reason. But Hanya was supposed to be a member of the Oniwaban group.
Okay.
Which is supposed to be the main antagonistic force for Takeda in the anime. Led by a guy named Aoshi. And from what I understand, he is in the following movie.
Okay.
So I guess they just kind of swapped him out so they could put more focus on him in the next movie.
Maybe. All I know, this isn't really a nitpick because I found it amusing, but is his mask accurate to the anime version or is it?
The anime one is kind of more of like an Oni.
Okay, because I'm assuming it looks better in the anime.
Yeah, I don't know. This one was like borderline ghost face, like Scream.
So my reaction when he popped up on screen was, I'm like, who's this Slipknot reject over here? And I was like, okay.
And he takes up the mask and he's all like scarred up and burned or whatever. Like, yeah, I don't know. I was really confused at that part because I thought they were gonna throw in the actual guy that's supposed to be a part of that, but
yeah,
I just remember.
Okay. I was just going to say, I just remember seeing it and being like, okay, I get the budget was probably not very big, but I can't take that mask seriously.
Yeah, it was pretty silly. They definitely could have sprung for a better mask. I'm just saying.
That was like the one real costuming choice that I was like, yeah, that clearly is where you can tell the budget wasn't that high.
Yeah, but the actual character, his name, Gain. It's Gein. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Mm-hmm. But he appears in the Shishio arc that I mentioned earlier, and then again in the final arc that was never adapted. Gotcha. Obviously, he was taken out in this movie, so I doubt we're going to see him again in the live action movies. But it seems like they're just kind of waving him away for the future.
Gotcha. I did think though, like the scene. So that whole storming the mansion like scene is just epic in like every way because you got all the different fights going on. You got Kenshin fighting that guy. You got what's the big sword guy's name?
Sanosuke.
You got Sanosuke basically just brutalizing this other guy with his like brawling style. And then they finally get to the main room, and then that machine gun from earlier in the film just shows up. And I love that thing because it is so fucking unnecessarily extra in every way. Like it's gold plated.
And right.
Super shiny. And I'm like, okay, this is funny because of a film and anime, but like in reality, like that is so unnecessary, and the gold plating would probably compromise the structure of it, but whatever.
Probably, yeah.
But it's probably brass now that I think about it, but
well, I'm not sure. But yeah, that whole scene was ridiculous. The whole Gatling gun thing, and it just kind of like really speaks to that particular character. He's just like that kind of guy. He's so over the top and extra. Like he wants to show like I got the biggest gun, I got the most power. You know what I mean? But really, he wasn't shit.
No, I love the scene where like they're in front of the door right before they open, and he just blasts the door. And I was like, my inner skeptic was like, "There's no way they didn't get shot there." Like,
yeah,
like that. I'm like that. That was pretty good. I did like his whole joke after he went crazy with the machine gun. He's like, "What did you do to my house?" And it's like, I'm pretty sure you did this to your house, sir.
Yeah, right. It's like, I'm pretty sure you did more damage than we did.
Yeah,
it was pretty funny.
that was good. So the final fight in the film is probably the most interesting one because it was really it was really kind of like that, like finally Kenshin getting pushed to his limit. I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was like the big kind of like test of his resolve.
Yeah, because like basically during the fight, the villain takes Kairu as a hostage essentially and uses her to basically taunt Kenshin the entire fight.
Basically trying to goad him into killing again.
Yeah, and it almost works. That's the kind of like sad part about it.
Mm-hmm. And that actually becomes a theme throughout the series is all these different villains trying to push him to that point, trying to get him to go back to his killer self from when he was younger. And that's part of what makes the series as wholesome as it is. And for that reason, I do enjoy it a lot, and there's a lot of really good things to like about it.
I was gonna laugh though. It's like, imagine if Kairu couldn't get out of the little chokehold spell she was in. It's like that would have just completely changed the entire series right there.
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, that was like the big turning point, and it makes sense why they made that kind of like the ending point of the movie where they wanted to lead up to, because that is like a huge point in the series, a huge character defining aspect of the show.
Yeah, like honestly, like the conclusion of that fight is pretty epic because he basically like forces Kenshin to like kill him, and then because Kenshin had completely just disabled him, like he'd destroyed his arm so he couldn't use a sword anymore, and was basically like he basically forced him into the point of like submission, and then after he doesn't kill him, he kills himself, obviously out of spite, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, spite, or maybe it's just the whole, live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing. It's like, well, if you're not going to kill me, then I'll do it, but
he committed a seppuku, I think it was, and just
yeah. But yeah, there's definitely like the changes that they made worked for the movie. I think they definitely benefited a lot of it. I'm hoping that they expand on some of the stuff from the later movies. I mean, when you give 5 movies, like, and I'm assuming they're all about the same length, probably about 2 hours. That's a good amount of time to work with.
I think Netflix combines 2 of them together for watching purposes. I'd have to double check because I only saw 3 movies on Netflix last time I checked.
It's weird. Netflix only has the first, 4th, and 5th. They got the very first one, and then the 2 newest ones that they made like a year ago.
Okay, yeah, because I noticed like 2 of them were missing, and I was like, that's gonna be. That'll be a conundrum for later that I'll worry about then. But
yeah, well, that's why like doing this first one was a good jumping off point because it kind of is a self-contained story. And then we can always come back and revisit it later.
Hopefully by then I'll have seen the anime because I did order it recently. I got the box set of the original series coming in, and then I might watch the new series at some point as well. Like I'll start. I think only the first 4 episodes are dubbed currently, so it's going to be a slower one. But
yeah, it's going to be definitely a bit of a crawl on that one. But I'm looking forward to watching the new series just to see a lot of the stuff in modern animation. I mean, I definitely would like them to stick more to like a classic 2D style, just like a better quality version.
Yeah. I mean, the original series doesn't look bad per se. Like, it's definitely a 90s anime.
It's definitely dated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, unfortunately, a lot of those older animes definitely like. So it's interesting that I never got into this one because as I've been looking into it, especially with this film, there's a lot of similarities to Inuyasha in a lot of ways stylistically.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the whole swordplay being a main driving force of the combat and stuff throughout.
Yeah, like the only real difference is the main heroine isn't from the future. So
yeah. Although I definitely like Kagome more than Kaoru.
I don't know enough about Kaoru yet to really have an opinion, but
you'll probably form a similar opinion when you start watching the anime. She's a lot more tolerable in the movie.
Does she get kidnapped a lot? Because I was getting that impression watching it.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah,
Okay.
there was a whole thing like she's like a dojo master and she's supposed to be like good at sword fighting, but she just like kind of sucks.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because like Kagome gets kidnapped a lot too, but at least Kagome tries to fight back.
Yeah, exactly.
But
So overall, what like if you were gonna give a rating to this movie, what would you give it out of say 10?
So I'm gonna like make this an adjustable rating because I haven't, like I said, I haven't seen any of the source material.
Yeah,
But just as a film itself, I'll give it an 8.
solid. I think I'm trying to remember exactly. I think it only covers about like the first maybe 10 to 15 episodes.
Okay.
But it does a good job of consolidating it all. I mean, there's a lot of like backstories and stuff they had to cut. Like they didn't tell, like in this movie, Yahiko was already a member of the dojo, which wasn't the case in the anime. He shows up after Kenshin.
Gotcha.
And then obviously it passed over Sanosuke's backstory. They gave a lot of attention to Saito, which I did like a lot because he's one of my favorite characters in the show. Because he's just kind of like that antagonistic anti-hero kind of character.
Yeah, like it's interesting to me because like the reason I say 8 is because one reason that like the reason I'd give it an 8 is like one thing that like really draws how much I enjoy a film or not is the phone test where if you basically if you keep turning your phone on and looking at your phone during a movie, you're clearly not enjoying it that much.
Yeah.
Which is something that I get guilty of sometimes. Or especially if I'm watching an anime that I'm not really into, you'll be at the phone all the time, like doing something else, and you're not really paying attention.
Yeah.
It's one of the main reasons I prefer dubs over subs because I just can't focus. I don't have that multitasking ability. And with this film, like I think I looked at my phone once, and that was during the right around the middle. I want to say there was like one point that I thought was a little slow. I can't really remember exactly what it was though, but other than that, though, I was pretty much glued to the screen the entire time. Like I didn't even realize how long this movie actually was.
See, I had watched it once or twice before, so my attention wandered a little bit just because I'm already familiar with the story. I know all this stuff, and because they get it so close, really, with just a couple of twists to the source material, like there wasn't any real surprises for me.
Yeah.
So like,
well,
I was very aware of the time going by, but I was still engaged the whole time. There were definitely some slow parts, but I definitely enjoyed it a lot.
Well, I have to say the phone test only really applies to the first watching of anything. Like, because on repeats, you're bound to. Unless you absolutely adore something, your mind is bound to wander during just anything.
Even if it's something I do, like I'll still fuck around on my phone if I'm watching Lord of the Rings or Dragon Ball. But
true. Yeah.
But that's also just a side effect of like you've watched it X amount of times. You know what's going on. You know when to look up when something cool is gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean it's like whenever Alex rewatches One Piece for like the 100th time, I know she's on her phone half the time, not actually watching it.
Right, you're not just sitting there like glued to the screen.
Yeah, like she's clearly like she'll look up when something happens that she likes, but then like she'll be on her phone otherwise. She's guilty of that just in general. She's always on her phone when watching anything.
Yeah,
but that's Alex.
But yeah, overall, I think an 8 is a pretty solid rating. I'd say, I don't know, I'd probably give it about the same. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give it a 9 just because I really don't have that much that I dislike about it. Really, the only negative things I can really say about it are nitpicks. And,
yeah,
the only thing I can maybe say is they kind of tried to stuff a little bit too much into this one movie. But they did it well, even if it did feel a little cluttered at times. So yeah, I'd go as far as giving it a 9, and especially when you line it up against other adaptations.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, I think it did its job because I'm actually interested in checking out the original anime now. So
it's definitely worth it.
That's on my bucket list. It's not too long either. It's only like 90 something episodes. Only 90 something episodes.
Well, I mean, honestly, you could stop after like episode 60. Once you hit that like last third of filler, it's like if you continue watching original Naruto after like episode 140, you're just
Yeah.
you're just signing up for misery.
Yeah. or like most of Shippuden in general.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's it dispersed throughout. That's why that one's such a hard one for me to watch. I love Naruto. I love Shippuden especially, but God, it's such a difficult show to watch for that reason. If there's any show that could benefit from a Kai, it's definitely Naruto.
Yeah. They're actually re-releasing that on Blu-ray now, and I'm like very curious how many Blu-ray sets that's going to be.
Yeah, hit me up when they start releasing in like 30 episode batches. Then I might consider it.
Yeah, not totally.
If we get like some orange boxes for Naruto, then I'll start getting them. But 13 episodes a pop for over 800 episodes, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, it's funny how like sometimes like you won't be that, you're not that big of a fan that you're gonna go out of your way to buy something again. Like the Inuyasha Blu-rays came out a while back, and I remember I saw them and I was kind of like, I got the DVDs, I'm good. It's not gonna look that much better.
It's like I said before, the only way I would buy Dragon Ball again is if they re-release the Dragon boxes at a good price.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Which I doubt is ever going to happen at this point.
Yeah, I know, sadly.
Unless, like, God forbid Toriyama died, in which case they might, but...
Yeah. Yeah, but, I mean, other than that, though, I enjoyed the film. I definitely recommend watching. I'd recommend anyone watch it if you're a fan of like Japanese like style content.
I mean, in a lot of ways, it's basically just a high quality samurai movie. At the end of the day, you could watch it without even knowing that it's an anime movie or an anime adaptation, and you could just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah. Honestly, it wasn't even super. There wasn't any moments in it that were super anime at all either.
Yeah, except for like the the basic kind of stuff, like how we kept going ororo, like things like that. Which, if we were watching it subtitled, I would have just kind of passed over it, not even noticed it. But the fact that it was the dub actor that was doing it, I was like, wait a minute, what are you doing there?
Yeah, I will recommend probably watching this sub though, because the dub is a little good. It takes you out of it at times with just like with some of the performances.
It is pretty silly at points. And like I say, J. Michael Tatum was not a good fit. I mean, no, he did a great job. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, the performances were great. They just
his voice does not match that dude's face. Not at all.
Not at all.
J. Michael Tatum has one of those like burly man's man voices, and that is not a burly man.
Yeah, that is true.
But
oh man.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to see where the future movies go. We're gonna have to look into where we can find the next ones, because I don't know how we want to handle it when we do revisit it, because the next two movies are basically like a 2-part movie.
We'd probably do them both just to get the full story.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that would probably be a pretty long one. Especially watching it would be pretty long, because I'm assuming they're all about 2 hours long. So
I'd assume so, but I mean, I could probably knock that out in like a couple days.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely find the time. I actually watched this movie twice leading up, because I just wanted to try and have it, in my mind.
I watched it earlier this week, and then I watched it like literally an hour before recording.
It's definitely enjoyable. And I'm glad we started off with this one, because God, there's going to be a lot of slogs after this one. Yeah.
Dragon Ball Evolution alone is going to be a experience.
I mean, I could have a lot of fun with that one, just because, I mean, it's a little bit embarrassing. I saw it in theaters, and I bought it on DVD as soon as it came out, because at the time, I was a teenager. I was in middle school when it came out. Or was it? No, maybe I wasn't. Maybe it was a freshman. I don't remember. But I was just excited, like, oh my God, live action Dragon Ball. I just wanted more of that, and not knowing what I was getting myself into. I wasn't as knowledgeable about the series as I am now. And
yeah.
I mean, I was aware of all the fuck ups they made, and I was aware of all the mistakes they made, but I still enjoyed it for what it was, even though it's really just a bad movie.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Nowadays, I'm older and wiser. But one that I would like to do at some point, though, is, did you ever watch Light of Hope? It was a fan-made thing.
Fan-made Dragon Ball? thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to look into it because it sounds familiar. I haven't seen it though.
It was a fan made live action project where they did the History of Trunks special as live action, and they did a really good job with that.
I'll have to look into it.
I think altogether it's like maybe 45 minutes, about the same length as the actual special. So it's not very long. It's just a quick little thing, and they did way better than Dragon Ball Evolution did.
Well, that's not exactly a high bar to beat, but
yeah, no kidding. They did it with a way, way, way smaller budget too.
Yeah. See, the thing about Evolution to me that really makes it sad is like it's not even like one of those. It's not like Street Fighter the movie where it's like you laugh about it. It's like so bad it's good. It's just bad. It's like you laugh at it for a minute and then you're like, this is sad.
Well, see, I mean, it's like with a Netflix Death Note. Like I can laugh at that movie, you know, like that movie is, I think by design, laughable. But at the same time, it also has Willem Dafoe, which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, well, that's like the one thing about that movie that they did absolutely right was casting Willem Dafoe as Ryuk. That was amazing.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that stuff when we get to it.
Yeah.
We'll have to at some point. I don't have to dig to find them, but I have an extra set of the Japanese live action Death Note movies. So if I dig them out and put them aside, I'll make sure I have them for you the next time you're in town.
Okay.
Because that is one of the many that you cannot find streaming. I don't even think you can rent it or buy it on Prime or anything.
If you can't, if it even comes up, it's probably one of those not available films that are annoyingly there, but you can't buy.
Which is really upsetting because they're honestly really good. I don't know why they're so unavailable.
Probably a licensing thing.
It could be.
Netflix probably owns the streaming license for it, so they can't do anything with it.
That makes sense. I heard a while ago that they were planning on making another one, but I don't know whatever happened with that.
I don't know. Netflix has gone through a lot of projects lately, and they can't seem to find their niche anymore.
Well, they're doing all right with One Piece, so we'll see.
I mean, a stopped clock is right at least twice a day.
True. I just hope the Yu Yu Hakusho one turns out all right. I'm going to be so disappointed otherwise.
I'm also curious about that supposed reanimating of Yu Yu Hakusho that's been announced, apparently.
Yeah, see, I'm perfectly okay with that if they want to do that. The only thing I have an issue with is when it gets dubbed, because it's going to get dubbed, is how much are they going to change the script? Because there's a lot of stuff that they had in the script in the early 2000s that would not fly today.
No. Honestly, if a perfect world, they just keep the original dub, but I doubt they're going to do that.
Yeah, I doubt it too, but that would be the ideal.
I hope if they do redub it, though, they bring all the cast back.
Yeah. Well, there's probably some that they're not going to, and a lot of them are older now, you know. I mean, we talked on the Dragon Ball episode about people like Cynthia Kranz.
Yeah, I mean, she could still do Botan, but her voice is very different now.
Yeah, I mean, Botan is very, very young and bubbly kind of voice, and I mean, nobody at Funimation is getting any younger.
Yeah, I mean, because even like Kuwabara's like, I always laugh because Kuwabara sounds very young and like, I mean, I bet Sabat could probably still do the voice, but he is a lot older now.
Yeah, and he's tweaked the way he's done a lot of stuff over the years. Like, I'd be really curious to see how a lot of the original actors would play those voices. Like, would they tweak them at all? Would they change them? Would they kind of just try to imitate their old voices? Like, because they were all very green when they did that.
Well, you know, Hiei will be 1-to-1 because
his voice is eternal.
Chuck Huber's voice has been the same forever.
Yeah, going all the way from Garlic Jr. to today.
Yeah, Justin Cook's pretty similar. I think he might be all right, but
yeah, well, that's the one thing is they don't have Justin Cook as Yusuke, and they might as well just not even bother.
I know, right? And then John Bugmeyer, I think, was the other one.
Right, and then Linda Young for Genkai.
Right. That's I think they're.
What?
I think they're related.
Yeah, she's his mom.
Yep, that's what it was. Yep.
Yeah. Although wasn't Laura Bailey Keiko?
Yeah, that's the one. I
So
mean,
that's
Alexis.
probably not going to happen.
I mean, she came back for Fruit Baskets. I mean,
True. I mean,
she
she
did.
might. We'll see.
I mean, Toru was her star-making role, so that one was sentimental to her. So I get why she came back. I mean, if Funny really wanted her, they could pay her, get the money to bring her back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point, it's Sony's money, so.
True. And I mean, Keiko's only really there for like.
Yeah, she's not like a super integral character, so I can't see her doing that.
Her most
I can't see her doing that for a role that isn't the lead.
Her most iconic scene is literally the scene where Yusuke just beats the shit out of her for no reason.
Slaps the shit out of her.
Yeah. That's the only scene I really remember from Keiko in the show. So
for real. And then when she was getting chased by all the zombified people, and Yusuke's just like, she's tough. She can hang with the best of them. She'll get out of this just fine. And she's just slapping them.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some. I honestly hope that's my only downside to them reanimating is it's not going to have the same charm that the original series had.
Yeah, that's one of the things about that. See, that's why I don't mind them doing it with Kenshin, because honestly, I think Kenshin needs it. But
yeah, like
because Kenshin looks old. Like Yu Yu Hakusho was made around the same time, but it doesn't feel as old as Kenshin does. And maybe that's just because of the time period it's set in and the color palettes and stuff like that. But just for me, Yu Yu Hakusho seems more modern than Kenshin does.
Yu Yu Hakusho is kind of on the same level to me as the original Inuyasha series was, like where they still look good even today. Like
my personal headcanon after I watched Inuyasha was that that Inuyasha and Yu Yu Hakusho are actually the same universe, and that's where all the demons went away because they like closed off the like border between the spirit realm and the demon realm and the human world.
That's actually, believe it or not, a common fan theory I think I've seen.
Oh, is it? I never even saw that online. That's my headcanon.
Maybe not note for note that, but there is a lot of crossover between those two fandoms, which
that's one of the things about Inuyasha that always bugged me is like they made such a huge deal, like all these demons, like literally every episode there's a new village getting wiped out by demons. They're just everywhere, and then they go to the future and there's like one.
Yeah,
it's like where'd they all go? They never explained where they all went. Like
Yashahime kind of played with the whole idea of them back in the future, but they didn't stick around long enough to really get anywhere.
That's one thing. I'll have to go back, and I still haven't watched the second season of Yashahime yet.
Oh, you haven't watched where it gets good.
Yeah, well, I feel like I want to rewatch the original series before I really dive into that.
Yeah, probably.
It's been a bit since I watched it.
I mean, it's always worth a watch because it's a good one. But
I just finished JoJo's Bizarre Adventure today.
Yeah, I saw your comment on that, and I was kind of like, this is the reason why I haven't watched it yet, because I just don't have time for that yet.
It's a wild way to end, and I hope that the anime continues, but I'm questioning whether or not it actually will, based on the tone, I guess, of the way it ended. So yeah, we'll see. I know the manga goes further. I think the manga's like on like part 9 now in Japan.
That's what Alex tells me. She says it's like there's so many more Joe stars that have to appear.
But we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah. Other than that, though, I think we pretty much covered it all. I mean, job well done. It got me interested in checking out the series. So
yeah, that's definitely a sign of a well-made live-action movie. Is it if it sparks interest in the source material, then I'd say it was pretty successful.
No, 100%.
And hopefully we'll find some more hidden gems among all the trash. Yeah, because there's plenty of trash. I have heard some good things about the Bleach one. I haven't watched it myself yet, so I'm looking forward to checking that one out. I never watched the Bebop one, so I'd be interested to check that one out at some point.
There's actually two. There's actually 2 live-action Kaguya-sama movies that I'm actually kind of curious to find.
I was only aware of one. I made a bunch of notes of possibles. And I did find that one existed, and I wrote that one down. I wouldn't know
It
where
got
to find it.
It got a direct sequel. I don't think they've been officially released over here, but I'm sure there's fan subs out there.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh, excuse me.
No way.
Yeah, it's been a long week.
No, I hear you.
But yeah, I'm sure we'll come up with some good ones.
Yeah. I guess this is a good time to cut it off for now. Next week we're going to be covering some anime, so look forward to that.
Yeah,
but
a little bite-sized one this week.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we still
comparatively.
I mean, nothing's going to beat the 3-hour Dragon Ball discussion. So
yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, anyways, guys, once again, thanks for joining us over on Geek Addicts. You can find Geek Addicts once a week in the Gaming and Collecting podcast feed. And you can find us pretty much all the podcasting, like all the same podcasting platforms. You can find Gaming and Collecting. You can find all of our links at linktree/TheBarberGames. And you can join the GNC Podcast Network Discord server if you want to join in on the conversation. And with that, guys, we will see you all next time.
Have a good one.